For weeks, it really felt like the world was just holding its breath, you know? The United States and Iran were on this collision course, just spiraling toward all-out war. And then, just as suddenly as it all began, it stopped. So what on earth happened? Today, we're going to unpack the high-stakes diplomacy that pulled these two nations back from the very brink. 39 days. For 39 incredibly tense days, this conflict just dominated the global headlines. You can only imagine the immense pressure on the leaders in Washington and Tehran. Every single statement, every military move was put under a microscope as the world was just bracing for a war that seemed, well, it seemed inevitable.
And then, right as the clock seemed to be running out on a U.S. deadline, the world got some completely unexpected news. A 2-week bilateral ceasefire was announced. It was this last-minute reprieve that allowed pretty much everyone to take a collective, very cautious breath.
Okay, so how did we get so incredibly close to the edge, only to pull back at the last second? Well, it really all came down to the complex and, let's be honest, risky strategies that were being used by the main players here. This really lays out the two opposing game plans perfectly. So on one side, you have the U.S. playing this game of brinkmanship, pushing right to the very edge with some really aggressive threats, but then always creating these off-ramps for de-escalation at the last minute. The goal? To force the reopening of a key waterway without getting European militaries involved. And then on the other side, you've got Iran using its geographic advantage as a massive leverage play, basically turning a military fight into an economic one that squeezed the entire global community. And in a way, the U.S. strategy, it worked. After days of threatening to obliterate Iran's energy infrastructure, the final decision to step back was met with this just overwhelming global relief. It was a total high-wire act that kept the whole world guessing right up until the very end. But look, to really understand Iran's leverage here, we have to look at its most powerful weapon. And it wasn't a missile, it was geography.
So what was it? What allowed Iran to keep the pressure on even while its own infrastructure was under threat? Well, the answer lies in a tiny, narrow stretch of water.
1/5. I mean, just think about that for a second. Almost a fifth of the entire planet's energy supply has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. By basically controlling this choke point, Iran could send massive shockwaves through the global economy, driving up oil prices for absolutely everyone, including the U.S. And Iran got pretty creative with this leverage, too. They set up what diplomats started calling, kind of wryly, the Ayatollah booth. The reports were that they were allowing some ships to pass through for a toll of around $2 million. It was a masterclass in turning a strategic military position into direct economic power. So, with the U.S. and Iran at a complete stalemate, who could possibly step in to broker a peace? Well, the answer came from a very, very unexpected corner. And what's so crucial here is that both sides publicly credited the exact same third party, Pakistan. You had President Trump citing his talks with Pakistani leadership as the reason for the pause, and at the same time, Iran's foreign minister was thanking them for their tireless efforts. I mean, this wasn't some minor role. Pakistan had become the central mediator, and in doing so, it dramatically boosted its own diplomatic standing on the world stage. And Pakistan is wasting absolutely no time capitalizing on this success. This quote from Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, it isn't just a simple thank you. It is a major strategic move. By inviting both delegations to Islamabad, he's aiming to brand all future negotiations as the Islamabad talks, cementing Pakistan's new role as a key global peacemaker.
But this diplomatic breakthrough, it only came after a period of really intense and brutal conflict. Before we look ahead, it's just so important to understand the absolutely devastating toll of those 39 days.
The human cost was just staggering. In a little over 5 weeks, the conflict claimed more than 3,000 lives across the region. It's a very stark reminder of what was really at stake. And the suffering wasn't just contained to 2 countries. As you can see here, while Iran and Lebanon really bore the brunt of the casualties, the conflict's deadly reach extended all across the region, to Gulf countries, to Israel, and it even claimed the lives of 13 U.S. military personnel. This was a true regional crisis. The economic fallout was just as devastating. I mean, just look at our global powerhouse like India, which relies on the Gulf for 60% of its energy. In those 39 days, it received just 8 shipments. That's not just a number on a chart. A disruption on that scale can trigger fuel shortages, slow down entire industries, and threaten to derail a whole national economy. So, this ceasefire, it provides some much-needed relief. But let's be clear, this is just a pause. The path to a lasting peace is going to be incredibly challenging, and the really tough negotiations have just begun.
Iran has come to the negotiating table with what a lot of people are calling a maximalist 10-point plan, and their demands are sweeping: a complete lifting of all sanctions, the withdrawal of all U.S. combat forces from the entire region, and formal acceptance of their uranium enrichment program. These are incredibly tough starting positions for any negotiation.
But here's the big surprise. In response to these sweeping demands, President Trump's public statement called the plan a workable basis on which to negotiate. This has left analysts just scrambling. Is this a genuine diplomatic opening, or is it just another move in this ongoing strategic game? The diplomatic gap between the two sides, well, it's still vast.
And that brings us to the critical question, right? This 2-week pause is a precious, crucial window for diplomacy. But with both sides so far apart, is this the first real step on a difficult path to peace? Or is it just delaying the inevitable?